How to afford the life you want. So if you're worried about your finances and your future, you are not alone. Many people are worried about their finances. So, I receive every day notices from the free 30-minute consultation form on my blog about from people who are just pouring out their life and what they're worried about and what they want. And I'm worried about my finances. I'm just getting serious about my finances. I don't know what to do. So here's my situation. They tell me all about it and what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And how can I retire comfortably? I want to do the Smith Maneuver, but I don't know how. We're about to retire. I don't know how to set up the retirement income. I get these notices every day. And I just show you, so many people are worried about their finances and their future. So interviewed the last couple of months about 5 times so far by the Financial Post about with their family finance section, and they take an example of specific people and give us their situation and what do they recommend. And every situation is saying, here's my situation. Will I be okay to retire in the future? And the problem with it is they actually never set what their goal is. They don't say, well, will I be okay? Well, what exactly is your goal? They never actually say that. So usually I'm having to try to and you're trying to give them advice. I'm trying to estimate what they might want for their lifestyle. So surprising how many people ask, will I be okay? But don't actually know what it is that they want. Now, what you want is actually getting more and more expensive. Inflation has been quite high lately. Life is getting more expensive. How do you actually get there? So how can you afford the life you want? So what we're going to learn today is how to afford the life you want. We're going to cover why should you start with why, what's important about money to you, how can you clearly define what you want, why you don't need a budget, what can you do if you can't achieve the life that you want, how can you make your life plan realistic, how can you get help with your plan, why should you learn to have a higher risk tolerance, what's the key to implementing your plan, and is this all worth the effort? So first thing is that there's a great book out, Start With Why. And actually, why is actually really important. So why do we want to do this? And, you're trying to set a goal for your future. And the thing about it is it needs to be your goal, not what the average person want. I get a lot of people asking me, so how do my finances compare to the average? And I said, well, you know what? It actually doesn't really matter. I can tell you, but it doesn't really matter. The question is, what do you want to achieve what you want? And to really get there, the important thing is to start with really what's important to you and ask yourself, what's important about money to you? It's a really great question, and think about what it is and how do we create that in our life. Now, the most common, it should end up being something emotional that you feel that money can create for you. So the most common answers are freedom, security, self-confidence, and independence. There's lots of different answers, but those are kind of the most common ones. And this money can create those things for you. Okay, so it's never about the money itself. It's what it does for you in your life. Think about it. Spend some time thinking about it. What is it that's important about money to you? The next step is you actually want to define what your goal is. So what do you want and when? So the most common ones that we find, we have clients that are saving for all kinds of different goals. The most common ones are saving for a home and saving for retirement. And what's for a home? Question is, what home do you want? Find what prices are, find out what kind of place you want. Maybe not the specific home, but the area and the type. What's it cost? What kind of down payment are you going to need? What income do you need to qualify? Because you need to kind of work those things through. And is it, what's a realistic thing for you to try to save for? And then you make a specific plan to get there. And we have this year that first home savings account, which is brand new, just this year, and the home buyers plan, which is part of the RSP. There's some great ways to help you save for it. So, especially for younger people trying to save for their first home, these are all just really great opportunities. So I'm not going to talk a lot about a home much here. I just had a whole video podcast about the first home savings account, but I talk mostly about retirement and how to achieve the future that you want. So the first step there is decide what you actually want. So you got to detail your lifestyle. Now, usually the first step to do that is to understand what you're spending today. So start off by listing, all of your current, all of your income and expenses now. It's not a budget, but you just list what you have, what you're spending now, and make sure that you show what you're getting, what your income is, what you're saving, how much you're spending in the different areas, your best estimate. And then it should add up to roughly even, so you get a sense that you've kind of including everything. And then from there, you think, okay, what do I want now in my retirement? So you take each of these areas and you figure out what they want, what they're going to be in retire. So first of all, your home. Where are you going to live in your current home? What home are you going to be in? Are you still going to have a mortgage then or not? And you just figure out what the home would cost. And just put it all in today's dollars because you can figure out, you can add inflation separately later on. And then think of all your basic living costs, like food and gas for your car and all these healthcare and utilities and all this kind of stuff. So just think of all those basic costs and your bills. And then think of all the, the things that you really want, the things that make life fun. So entertainment, the cars you drive, the travel, spending money, and make sure you've got all those in. So you've got a detailed lifestyle. Because the question you're trying to answer is, how much money do you need for the lifestyle that you want? So let's try to figure that out, because there's no way you can know if you're on track unless you know exactly how much you need. And the thing about it is, be unconventional. Don't try to be what the average person is. Be unconventional. Like, will you be happy if you can always just live like today? Like a lot of people, I'm living fine today. I just want to keep living like you are today. But think about it. Would you be? Like, if you are, that's great. We'll plan for that. And so, a lot of people most people don't really have anything grand. They basically want their current lifestyle. The mortgage is going to be paid off. The kids are going to be gone, but they're going to want to do more entertainment and more travel and a few more fun things. And that's very often what happens, but we've done quite a few plans for people wanting to do some really unique things, or a ton of travel, or buy a cottage, or lots of very unique things. But so think about what you really want. And also, are you happy living less today or working more today so you can have a better future? And that's very often, like, you got to kind of ask yourself if you really want to do that. These things don't happen on your own. You have to kind of save for them. Now, financial plans, I've done, well over 1,000 of them. And it used to be that people retire at, 65 or 60, the earliest would be kind of the mid 50s. But that's kind of where people retired. Today, it's different. Is this new fire financial independence retired early? There's a whole community. In fact, it's just a different thought process with a lot of people that are, especially that are younger people, who want to retire in their 50s. We've written quite a few plans with people retiring in their 50s, some in their 40s, and even the odd one in their 30s. So, if you could think, I could retire early. We had some people that say, I want to retire the same time my parents do. So think about what you want in life. Retiring early can give you that ton of freedom, but it's a major thing that you have to give up. And if you're retiring early, it's not going to be super lavish. These are all kind of compromises to make them work. But think through what it is you want. Answer your question. How much money do you need for the lifestyle that you want? And, it's worth having a mental picture of it. So this is kind of my picture of, life, peace, a really beautiful place, and having the life that you want. So it's good to have a mental picture of it. Now, you don't need a budget. So a lot of people hate budgets. And, there's some people say that, nobody that likes budgeting is any fun. And there's maybe some truth to that, but actually there are exceptions. I've seen lots of fun people that really love budgeting. They're just math people. But the truth is, you don't need a budget. You need a plan. How do you spend your money now? You work this out in details, then you work out your detailed goal. So you figure this out once. It's not a budget. You're just kind of figuring out where you spend your money now, what's your goal in the future, and then you work out how much money you need to save, and you just put that away. What's called pay yourself first. You need to save 1,000 a month or 2,000 a month or whatever it is. You're going to put that amount away every month. And then once you do that, all the rest of your money, you can freely spend it without guilt, because you know what the future that you want. You know how much money you have to put away. You put that money away. Great. Now the rest of it you can spend with no guilt. And then you don't have to worry about a budget, because it's whatever. If you live, as long as you live within your means, don't run up debts, and you've already put away what you need, that's all you need to do. So now what if your plan doesn't work? So you make a basic plan, you figure out what you're trying to do, but you realize, it's just not going to work. And that very often happens with the plans we do. We start out with, what is somebody doing now? How much are they putting away? What's the life they want? And the first thing is we do the math on it. You look at it, you're not going to get there. You're just way off. And most people, before they have a financial plan, they're actually only going to have maybe 30% of the nest egg they need to retire on. They're going to be way off. So that's all very common. So then you start thinking, okay, so what do I do? We call this an interactive financial plan. We've got very flexible software that can work through lots of different options in just a few seconds, right? So you work through a bunch of options. What if I did this? And what if I did that? And we can show you all these very easily. And you're trying to find something that, reasonably close to your goal, that's a desirable goal, and yet is also reasonably doable. It's always a compromise between, how much you put away versus how comfortable your retirement is. So basically, if your plan doesn't work, you have 4 options. So work longer, save more, retire on less, or do a more aggressive or creative strategy. Those are kind of what your options are. So what do you want to do? So one thing you could do in this is, try to be extreme and prioritize what is really important to you. So like a lot of people have all kinds of things built in their plan that they just think this is what is standard. But is it really what you care about? So just make sure that it focuses on what you really care about. Because if you're willing to sacrifice things that don't really matter much to you, then it's much easier to get to where you want to go. Now, first one, work longer. It's just simple. Like maybe your goal was to retire at 55 or 50, but you realize, what? That's just not enough time. I can't get there. I have to put away way too much to get there at that time. I need my money to grow longer. That's going to work till 60 or 65. And we can very quickly show you how many more years would you have to work to have the difference that you want. So that's one simple option, work longer. Hopefully it's not past 65. Another one is save more. Now, the standard, there's some standard rules of thumb. You should save 10% or 20% of your income. The government actually has, you get RSP room, which is 18% of your income, plus you get some TFSA room. So, if you maximize those, then you're actually doing reasonably well. I've seen some extreme things, though. A lot of people just spend all that they make, and I see that quite a bit. I've seen people making, believe it or not, $500,000 and saving nothing because it all gets spent. They're enjoying on life with everything, but they're saving nothing for the futures. The future is going to be rough that way. On the other hand, I've seen people in this FIRE community save 80% of their income. Believe it or not, they're just radically savers. And then that's when they want to retire in their 30s or 40s or something. You live really frugally for a while, and then you live, great, or you have lots of freedom after that. So there's different amounts that you can save. So you got to decide what suits you. This is a trade-off between your lifestyle today, your lifestyle in the future, and how soon and how comfortable that is. So very often it comes down to spending less. So, and you know what? You can spend, you can look for ways to save a little bit, take a little bit out of entertainment, out of travel or something, or you can just be radically frugal. There's some great sites from different bloggers, especially people in the FIRE community, that show you all these. I've got an example here that's on the video on the Eat, Sleep, Breathe, FI.com blog. They have a Canadian FIRE directory of, different directories, different people that talk about FIRE, which is financial independence, retire early. So read some of these blogs. You'd be amazed at the ideas that people have. There's all kinds of ways to save money. It's not being cheap, it's being frugal. If you can learn to be frugal and save money, and then you're prioritizing it to the things that are important to you. So you save more, then you can invest all that extra money, and maybe that'll help you get to the future that you want. This FIRE community, it's not small. There's 1.2 million. These are actually old stats from a few years ago. 1.2 million members, 57 million search results on Google. So it's actually a big thing. Now, another thing you could do is just earn more money. So if you earn more, you can save more of it, right? Just keep your lifestyle the same and invest all the extra one. First of all, you could just kind of get a raise, or maybe find a different job or something where you're just paid more from your job. And actually, that often is more effective than, finding something on the side. Things on the side often don't make that much money. And, it's not that easy to get. It may be easier to get 10 or 20% more income from your job or from a different job. And, the big thing here is just be more valuable to your employer. And, if you're not appreciated there, find some place where you are appreciated. When you're where you're appreciated, it's easier to, work hard and put the effort in and be enthusiastic. And that's often what makes a difference for you. And, you may think it's hard to get a raise, but, businesses are actually finding it really hard to find good, hardworking, smart employees. A lot of businesses do. So when you become, invaluable in a company, then getting raises can easily happen. So that's one option. Find a job that pays more or earn more from the job that you do. That's one thought. Another thing is you could just do something on the side. Keep your job that, for your regular time, and then have extra money that you make on the side or the weekend or something. And, there's lots of sites that have these part-time jobs. Now, before I get into this, a lot of times these side hustles don't make much money depending on what you do. And a simpler, more reliable way it can be just go get a part-time job, just go, work at McDonald's part-time, or just do some of the trades, like some things that you can do on the side can often make more money than just a side hustle. But the side hustles are cool. There's actually lots and lots of them now. And when you see people looking to make extra money, it's mostly about side hustles and not about part-time jobs. So out of the ones that I've seen, you can look on just Google it and you can find there's all kinds of different options. But out of the ones that I've seen that seem to make decent amount of money, here are some examples. So one is you can just do Airbnb, and it could be a rental property you own, but very often, but I've seen people just do their own home, like put an ad in, and if you get people that are willing to pay you, 3,000 for a week in your home or something like that, go live with a friend, your parents go somewhere for a week, so you can make some money with that. I've seen people make a lot with an Amazon business, and there you kind of think of a theme, you create a site, and you try to find products that fit a certain kind of people, have your own theme and your own marketing name for it, and then buy those products and resell them on Amazon. So the Amazon site can actually do that. You can sell all kinds of things on there, but you can also sell things that you rebuy from somewhere else and sell them on Amazon. It's a great way to do a business. A simple one, I did this when I was young, just get a roommate. When I first moved to Ontario, I bought a place that I couldn't really afford it. So I put a basement apartment in and rented it. Plus I got a roommate upstairs. I'm in a townhouse with 2 tenants in it. It's the only way I could afford a house at the time. But, you can do that. That's a way to move ahead then. Uber can, be actually a neat thing to do. Now, Uber doesn't, believe it or not, doesn't make a lot of money. You can either be driving people or you can be delivering food or something. But, like for example, some Uber drivers I've been to just say, you know what, they just do it now and then. They just, when they're driving somewhere anyway, they'll put their name out and then they'll just get rides that, I'm driving here anyway. I may as well, pick up somebody and make some money on the way. And it's also Uber, you can just do, you have an evening when you get nothing to do, feel you like driving around. So just put your thing out and you can drive for a while. So you can actually rent out your car. There's sites where you can rent out your car now when you're not using it. You can dog walk or pet sit. There's places you can get odd jobs. There's a number of sites like this, Fiverr and Homestars and TaxRabbit, where especially if you do some sort of a trade or you want to do odd jobs, willing to do odd jobs for people, you can just put these all out. You can do some freelance work like writing or be a virtual assistant for someone. There's sites for that. Believe it or not, taking online surveys or joining focus groups is kind of a fun way that you can make some money for those. Again, just Google this, you can find this. One thing that used to happen a lot, especially young kids would in their teens would go out and mow the lawns and shovel the snow for neighbors. And now, you know what? You actually rarely see that anymore. But if there's a lot of people who really appreciate it, would gladly give you, $20 to mow their lawn or shovel their snow. And if you're in your teens, that can be a great thing. If you're older, that may not be much money, but it's something still easy to do. And it's a way also to help out your neighbors. The thing about all these businesses, they may not make much, but where you can make quite a bit more is if you make it a company, and this can be scalable. For example, instead of becoming a dog walker, start up a company, find a few people willing to walk dogs, set up a kind of a bit of a company where you get a bunch of people and you've got a bunch of people walking dogs for you and you have the company. So now you're not actually doing the work, but you're getting more money by doing it this way. So any of these side hustles could also be a company where you're arranging it. So those are ways that you can earn more money. If you could save that extra money, that might be a good way to actually achieve the future that you want. Another one you could do is just retire on less. So you set a goal. That's the lifestyle I want to have. You realize, I can't get there. And you know what it takes to get there, I don't really want to do. I have to save more than I want or work more than I want or something. So I say, okay, I'm just going to retire on less. And so the easy part is spend less on some of the discretionary spending, like entertainment or cars or traveling, that kind of thing. Or the bigger money can often be, you don't live in the city where it's expensive. Live outside the city or even move to a different country. Sometimes it can be really cheap and you can pay hardly any tax if you live in a different country. So you can think again, outside the box about how you might want to retire. I've had people that say, you know what? They believe about retire in their 40s and then go live in a less expensive country, and life can be pretty good that way. That's not for everybody, but you can think about whether that fits for you or not. For a lot of people, they may have this big house and then, they always necessarily want to downsize. But when you retire, you might want to do a fair amount of traveling, in which case a condo is much easier. Like a house, you got to worry about. So who's going to look after the house and mow the lawn and make it look lived in and while you're away? But maybe with your condo, you just lock the door and away you go. So a big easy one to save money on is cars. It's easy to save 50% or more on cars that you buy. And you know what? I've got good video out just about that. You know, how to own a nice car for less. And you can easily do it for a lot less. So that's one option, just retire on less. And that's the way you achieve your goal. The last one is just do a more aggressive strategy. Often this involves could be investing more aggressively, but the more effective way to do it is a strategy where you're borrowing money to invest. So you've already put away everything that you can, it doesn't get you there. So let's try borrowing some money to invest. And usually it's the interest, the money you borrow is tax deductible, and there's various strategies that you can do. So the most common one, so all these strategies are on my blog. There's articles and videos and podcasts about them. But the most common one we get is Smith Manoeuvre, which sounds like a quirky thing, but it actually really works well for a lot of people. So it converts your mortgage to tax deductible over time. And what it really does is it helps you invest for your retirement without using your cash flow. You're using your home equity, but not your cash flow to invest for your retirement. We've written a lot of plans for people where they couldn't make it to their goal, but we took what they were doing, added the Smith Maneuver to it. All of a sudden, they can now make their goal. So it's a cool and effective strategy. So for younger people, there's one called life cycle investing. It's the number one strategy if you're in your 20s and 30s. And there's a great book about it that shows how reliable this is a long-term strategy. That's a cool one. The other one that I developed myself is called the Rempel Maximum. And basically, it's the maximum growth strategy without using more cash flow. So this is the other option, is you could say, you know what, I'm doing what I can, but I still want to retire early and I still want to retire comfortably. So let's do something more aggressive or more creative, some sort of strategy to be able to get there. Okay, so the plan is you've got your 4 options, look through those options and kind of work through various scenarios until you find a retirement plan that works for you. So it's a reasonably comfortable retirement that you're happy with, and yet it's reasonably doable, and whatever you do is something that makes sense for you. Here's, the graph. There's a big article. The article I have on the Smith Maneuver on my blog, I think, is the best one out there anywhere. Now, you've got a plan, and you know what? It's got to be realistic. So the basic assumptions that you're putting into your plan need to be realistic. One of the big ones is inflation. So, like a lot of people put 2% inflation because we were close to 2 for a long time. But the thing is, the really low inflation we had from 92 till 2020, the really low inflation was 2.1% on average, but it was above 2. And then before and after that, it was quite a bit higher. So it doesn't make sense to use just 2. The most effective is 3. The Bank of Canada here is trying to keep inflation between 1% and 3%. So you want to have a margin of safety in this. This may not sound like a lot, 1 or 2 or 3%, but you know what? Over a 30 or 40 or 50 or 70-year retirement plan from now through retirement for the rest of your life, that's a huge difference that you need to include on that. So this is, you're going to start out by doing the lifestyle that you want in retirement in today's dollars, and then you got to move it ahead by inflation to when you're going to retire to see what it's going to be at that point. Suggest 3% is a good number there. Then investment returns. So basically, it's equities, the stock market. I suggest 8%. That's kind of the lowest it's made in the modern stock market. Some of the FPSC, the Financial Planner Standards Council, suggest less, but I think a lot of people just invest ineffectively, and maybe they're trying to be overly conservative. But I think 8 is a fairly conservative number. Fixed income, again, you want a conservative number. Places like FPSC tend to be quite, I think, unrealistically high on fixed income because they're trying to encourage people to invest more conservatively. However, from doing really thousands of financial plans, I can tell you that it just doesn't really work. So you need to have a higher return, like 7 or 8%, to make a plan work. The way to think of it is just think of it as, equities is 8%, balance is 5%, fixed income is 2%. And, over the long term, these things are reliable. Like, don't worry about the short-term ups and downs. It's just all short-term. Focus on the long term. And then the better way to think of it is just how many 8s and 5s and 2s do you want in your portfolio? I'm trying to invest. Do I want these 8% or these 5% or these 2%? What you'll hear from people everywhere is you need diversification. And the truth is, you don't need diversification if it's a mix of good and bad investments. So a mix of equities, growth investments, and fixed income, low return investments. So that I got good and bad investments. So that's not what it does. You need a bunch of investments that are all good growth investments, and then you diversify those so that they, do well in different situations. That can be a good diversification, but not mixing, high return and low return investments. And it is worthwhile, and I'll talk a bit more about later on, but you can learn to have a higher risk tolerance. You can learn to be comfortable with 100% equities. And this is just a matter of studying the history of the stock market and what's happened with them, and just reassuring yourself that these things are reliable long term. And you know what? If from doing thousands of financial plans, I can tell you, you need this 7 or 8% rate of return to make a plan work. You go to the average advisor of the bank and they say you should be moderate investor with balanced fund, or then your long-term average return expected is 5% a year. You're going to find basically nobody can retire on that. So this is an important thing is, learn to invest a bit more effectively, and then you can achieve your goal that way. It's a really important piece of it. Now, life expectancy is another one. So part of your retirement plan is you're putting in how long you expect to retire. And there's charts about it. You don't want to have, you see some things, the average, man lives till their late 70s and women till their early 80s. But you know what? That's averaging from birth. And that's not what you want. So what you take is from people who make it, to retirement, like 60 or 65, how long do they live? And you don't want the average, because if you take the average life expectancy, that means you have a 50% chance of running out of money. You want something that's sort of on the higher end. And actually, we have charts that can show, so if you're 60, you and your spouse are 65, you have a 20% chance or a 10% chance that one of you will make it till 94. That's a good number to do. Or actually, for the typical couple with average health, age 65, 50% of couples, one of them will still be alive at age 94. So that's a 30-year retirement from age 65. And if you're 25 saving, that's a 70-year retirement. But you need to build this life expectancy into the plan. We usually suggest 100, which is, in most cases, once you make it up to about 60, 65, there's only about a 10 or 20% chance that one of you would live to 100. So you don't want to plan ridiculously long. But an important part of the plan is you want to plan for long enough so that you're confident. When you retire, you want to be confident that, I know I'm never going to have to go back to work. Last thing you want to be is you're 80 and you're almost out of money and you're thinking, oh my God, maybe I should go back to work somewhere. You never want to worry about that. You want to retire with complete confidence and knowing that that you're always going to be fine. And that's why it's better to plan for a longer life expectancy. One thing that I saw, these national post articles, when we did the family finance thing, a number of those people that had submitted had a pension. And, with other advisors that comment, as soon as they say, oh, you have a government pension, oh, you'll be fine. And the truth is you're not, because, a government pension plus CPP on average are about 50% of the income that you have just before you retire. Can you live on 50%? And also, if you have a spouse and your spouse doesn't have the pension, let's say they make as much as you do, but they don't have the pension, but you do. Well, that pension and CPP is only a quarter now of your combined income. So that's probably not enough. So pensions are a good kind of base, but they're not going to get you there on their own. And plus, there's two government pensions. There's Canada Pension Plan and Old Age Security. Now, CPP is going to be there. Maybe not fully adjusted for inflation, but basically it's going to be there. They actually have a big pot of money. It's invested effectively. It's been tested with actuaries. That's fine. Old Age Security there is no pot of money. The government pays it out of their current revenues. And, for example, as all of the baby boomers retire, there's more and more people retire, and the next generation is smaller, and they have to pay for all those. And, we've already got government with a lot of debt, kind of out of control spending. And now you think of healthcare is going to, as the baby boomers retire, is going to go up a lot. And how are they going to be able to pay for all these pensions? So we've often don't count old age security because we're not completely sure it's going to be there, but the Canada Pension Plan will be there. Now, how do you get help with your plan? So these things can be, there's a lot involved in trying to do it. You can try to find some online software and try to think it all through yourself, but is this a really good plan? And the funny way to think is, do you need professional help? It sounds like you need professional help, but I'm serious. Like most people do. This is not really that easy to do, and you got to be honest with yourself. I find one of the hardest things about it is a lot of people, especially a lot of guys, have what I call hubris. They think I know better than everybody else. Nobody cares more about my money than I do. I'm just going to do it myself. But you know what? If you mess it up, like how are you going to be confident? You're trying to provide for yourself and your family. How do you know you're going to be fine? So hubris is this: we have met the enemy and it's us. So think about, I mean, if you, so reasonable number of people are able to plan this reasonably on their own. But, I've seen lots of cases where people planned it on their own and they missed major things. Like, for example, one that was very common is people forgot about inflation. So they just think, I want to retire on 80,000 a year. So they look 30 years from now, 80,000 a year and how much they need. But like 30 years from now, the cost of living is going to be more than double. So you got to take that into account. If you leave that one thing out, you've got less than half the money you need. So you can't make a really big error like that in it. Now, if you're going to get professional help, where do you get it? So the best thing is to get is a fee-for-service financial planner. Like, you can get a lot of financial advisors that are, that are on commission, or they're just selling investments that are claimed to do a plan for you. But these people are just kind of selling investments. They're not going to, are they going to do a proper plan? And important thing is you really need a proper plan. So with a fee-for-service financial planner, you're paying for a plan, which means you can get unbiased advice and you can get a real plan. Someone's actually, writing a plan, and that's what they specialize in, is writing a plan. Like, so that's what we do. We specialize in writing a real plan that really achieves you the life that you want. So we're not just trying to create some, a free plan is probably worth what you paid for it. And what you find with a lot of investment salespeople is they'll claim to do a plan for you, but really it's the very quickest kind of thing to say, I did some planning and I will talk about investments. And often the answer to your plan is you need this dividend investing or index investing or this strategy. If the answer to your retirement plan is an investment method, then you're asking the wrong question. You're talking to the wrong advisor. You need to actually make a real plan that will get there. When you're talking to an advisor, before they talk about any specific investments, we should create the entire plan. The entire plan takes hours to do. Like, you got to think it all through, put all the math, work out all the different options, and then kind of detail it, think through the strategies. It's quite a time-consuming process. So for most, people that call themselves financial planners, really they just sell investments or insurance, and they're trying to get this done really quickly so they can get into, trying to sell you something. And those are not the people that are going to give you a real answer. Now, the stat is, this was the stat from a little while ago. It might be a little bit less true now because I think there's a bit more of a trend to it. But the stat was that less than 1% of people that call themselves financial planners have written even one professional financial plan in their career. So I actually had a funny video a while ago, I called, what do you call a financial planner that doesn't plan finances? It's kind of funny how that happens. If you look at plans of the quality that you would need to get your certified financial planner, then, like, a lot of people have their CFP and they had to write one plan to get it as part of the course. But since then, they haven't written a single plan of that level. They just, they're just doing a very short thing. And so those are the people that aren't going to give you a real answer. You need a fee-for-service planner and a real plan that is going to work. Now, a plan, just going to show you a couple pages of our plan just to show you what it is. But a plan, you're actually stating, this is at what age do you and your spouse want to retire, and on how much do you want to retire. And it's very detailed. This is very round numbers, but I'm just kind of showing you what it kind of looked like. And we always also separate things that go up by inflation with things that are not. So most things do go up by inflation, like all of your lifestyle and all that. But for example, if you have a mortgage or loan and you're still going to have it in retirement, that, interest rate fluctuates, but it's not going up by inflation. Like, generally about every 25 years, the cost of living doubles. Well, mortgage payments, if you have the same mortgage, it's not going to double, so unless interest rates double, but so it's, you want to try this, helps you get it more accurately. And, 3% inflation built in. And then there's, sheets, we have sheets, one that figures all the pensions and government pensions and what they should be, and all your investments and how much you're putting away and what they add, total up to. And you end up with a results page that kind of says, okay, here's what you're putting away. This is an example. We haven't put any numbers in for what they'll actually have. But to achieve that, they need 2.8 million. And if they're saving nothing, so 2.8 million short. And now to get there, they would have to save $1,300 a month. Now, this is actually kind of funny. If these are people at 30 that are retiring, in 30 or 35 years. And the thing about when you see a financial plan is there's good news and bad news. The bad news is you need a lot more money than you think. You might be surprised. 2.8 million is what they need. You think, oh my God, they got to be multi-millionaires to retire comfortably. And the answer is yes, especially this is future dollars. Remember, that was 20, 30 years from now. You probably need a few million to retire comfortably. So now the good news, it's easier to get there than you think. So here, you know what? Investing $1,300 a month gets you to 2.8 million. So 2.8 million sounds ridiculous, but 1,300 a month is not a ridiculous number. So anyway, so I just kind of show you need to make a plan, look at how much you need to put away, and just figure out how to be able to get there. And also, if it's a one-time amount, this is where you can think, well, you know what? If I borrowed a chunk to invest and get a chunk working early, it's not even, I just have to pay the interest on 192,000. That's, it's a super way to get there. Now, a big piece is learn to have a higher risk tolerance. So as I was saying before, you need the 7 or 8% rate of return of long-term return of equities. Nobody can retire comfortably with a 5% long-term return. And if you doubt this, I have a few videos where I've actually shown examples of financial plans for different kinds, for, lower income, middle income, higher income people, and what it's like with a 5% return and what's like with an 8% rate of return. And it's, with a 5% rate of return, it's essentially, you have to save between a third and a half of your gross, like before tax income. You make 100,000 and you have to save 50 to be able to retire, basically with the same lifestyle you have now, making 5% rate of return. Well, that's absolutely ridiculous. Nobody's going to do that. But if you have 7 or 8%, then, you have to invest maybe 15% or 15 or 20% of your income, which is, kind of maxing your RSPs and stuff. So it's a reasonable way to do it if you're 100% equity. And you can learn. So having a higher risk tolerance is a learned skill. You can learn to do it. And that's just a really big, important piece to be able to have the future that you want. And what I can tell you, the short answer about stock markets is you're investing in, it's not really stock market, sounds scary, and people call it equities. You have equity in these companies. But basically, you're investing in great companies, grow their profits over time. And, short term, they're up and down a lot. And people, oh my God, it's down 20 or 30 or 40%. So, but you know what? Just leave it in there over the long term. And these are surprisingly very reliable as a long-term investment, much more reliable than you may think. This is, I've shown this chart a lot, but this is from, 1800 till now. This is the trend line in stocks, which is 6.8 real. Real means above inflation. So basically, the stock market long-term rate of return is 7% above inflation. And look, it's always been close to that trend line. So my point is, it is reliable long-term, and things like fixed income are not. Fixed income, they often get beat up by inflation or by rising rates and stuff. But stocks the companies have a management that adapts to whatever is happening. So when you look at 1-year periods of time, stock market will often have 20 or 30 or occasionally 40% decline. But, if you're in for 25 years, so this is kind of the modern stock market, the worst 25-year period, calendar period of this S&P 500 in the modern stock market has been 8% a year. So it is, the stock market is a reliable place for the long term. And when you study it and get confidence in it and just ride through the ups and downs, it falls 30%, but you just wait a couple of years, you're all the way back up, and by staying invested, that's how you achieve your goals. So, and you may think, a lot of people think, real estate is reliable, but stock market is who knows. Well, this is actually, the last 45 years, this here is the purple is the average house price in Toronto. These are the stock markets, US, global, and Canada. So the returns, not only are they reliable long-term, but they're actually significantly higher than things like real estate and so on. All right, so that's part of it. Those are all kind of pieces, investing effectively, and these are all, and having good assumptions. It's all part of having a realistic plan. Then you finally got your plan. Then the thing is, you got to act, you got to implement it. And once you've got the plan, don't think about it for long. Like, you just start on it. And, there's a famous quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like, once you're there, once you've decided that's the goal that I want, here's what I got to do, then just start. And even if you're saying, well, I got something happening, I got to sort out first, well, just, I don't know, start out where you can and just get it going. And what if you can't do it perfectly first? So one of the great pieces of advice I got when I started with my blog is, I actually had been thinking about a blog for a few years, but it seemed like a lot of things to put it all together. And how would I do this? And how often would I be able to write? And the perfect quote I got from an established blogger, he says, perfect is the enemy of good. So basically start, do something pretty good. It doesn't matter if it's perfect, start out, get going down the road and, adjust that as you need. But once you figure out your plan, just act on it and get going. And, the earlier you start and the more money you get invested earlier, the easier this works, because this magic of compounding, is really amazing. It can get you there. Here's an example. Like with 8 or 10% rate of return, 1,000 a month at an 8% rate of return, 30 years is 1.5 million. At 10% rate of return, that's kind of, the stock market averages long-term about 10, 11% a year. You want to plan on that high in your plan, but that is kind of what the market has averaged. If you put away 1,000 a month for 40 years, from age 25 to 65, that's $6.4 million you have just from that. So the magic of compounding, like over a long period of time, makes a big difference. And you notice if you start at age 25 versus 35, you have 40 years in instead of 30 years, and you end up with 6.4 instead of 2.3 million. It's huge. The benefit of starting early. Anytime you start, you would have been better if you'd started off 10 years earlier. In fact, we once had one of the kids of one of our clients was 14, and we gave him an introduction to planning, a bit about investments. And he's 14, and he's putting money away, and he says, wow, I wish I'd started this 10 years earlier. That's fine, but you can't start early. You just start now and just, get going at it. Now, is it worth the effort? It seems like to put this all together, you have to put some money away. Why not just live your life and, whatever happens, happens. The problem is that then you end up with, a lot of people, what happens with most Canadians is they don't plan for retirement. They get to retire. They get what they get, and they adjust their lifestyle down to it. And, a lot of retirees, you can phone them any time of day or night, and they're answering on the first or second ring because they're home. They don't have the money to go out and do something. They're not living the life that they want. So you don't want to spend the last few decades of your life living like that. You want to live the life that you want. And, I can tell you from helping lots of people get there, it's absolutely amazing once you get there. You've got financial independence, which means you're not relying upon anybody. You can live the way you want. You can work if you want, but only if you want. You can do what you want, live the way you want. It gives you a real feeling of self-confidence that you've done it. This feeling of security is my future is secure. My life is secure. I don't have to worry about anything. And the freedom to just go out and do what you want, the freedom, the time freedom and the money freedom and the fun freedom. It is really worthwhile. So, and then again, it's worthwhile having a mental picture. Again, this is my mental picture of, living a beautiful life and, just have a picture of it. Then it can help keep you motivated to be able to work that way. How can we help? So we do two basic services. One is an interactive financial plan to once work out your plan for you. And then from there, you can either go off and do it yourself, or you can work with us full service to implement it and work with you over the years to achieve it. So financial plan, we charge $5,000 for it. Now, $6,000 for a complex plan with a corporation and all that, but basic plan is $5,000. If you become full service, we refund $2,000 of it. It only costs you $3,000. And if you have a simple situation, like this is more you're starting out and you don't know what your future is, it's a very simple situation. Or you're just starting out, then we'll say, you know what, it's not worth writing a plan because things are going to all change in your life. Let's just sit down and talk about it and then implement it together. We only charge $1,000. Now, we only do that if you're going to work together with us, because it doesn't make any sense to, meet and go through a plan and not write anything down and then not work with us. So the idea with the plan discussion is we're going to help you figure out what to do, but we're not going to work it out in detail. We're just going to make a couple notes of action steps and then work with you to implement it over the years. So it works with simple situation, but it's a good way to get started. Now, full service, this is, we only take on clients that work 100% with us because it's the only way that you can, really work effectively with somebody. So we want to know all about your finances. So, what's important to you? What are your goals? What's your cash flow look like? What's your tax situation and your brackets? And then also how are you invested? If we know all these pieces, we can really help you. That's the only way that can really give you the right help to be able to get there. So we only take on clients that way. We charge 1% of your investments and less for larger accounts. So part of it is we help you implement your plan and we review it regularly, and we're there to answer all your financial questions as you go along. So you're never alone. You're always working with professionals. And then the investment side, we refer out, we're the planners. We refer out to these, to a couple of elite independent portfolio managers. We found the really best investors for you. And so the main one that we're using, he's got a portfolio of all-star fund managers. So these are the world's best fund managers. And it's a really elite group. These are people that have long-term track records beating the index after fees. So it means it's better than having an index fund. These guys are ahead of the index after fees. And you know what? These are including our fees. So our 1% that we charge, we expect to pay for that just by referring these top portfolio managers, because we're expecting to continue to outperform the indexes after fees, including our fees. So that we haven't really cost you anything compared to just matching the index. We also have portfolio managers called Index Plus. Some people just believe in indexing. This one hasn't done as well as the All-Star Fund Manager guy, but basically he charges a very low fee and then plus a performance only when he beats the index. So his fee is basically what an ETF fee is, plus a bonus when he beats the index. So it shows you, you're only paying for performance that way. So those are ways that we can help you create your plan and then work with you over the years to be able to achieve it. All right. Well, thank you for listening. What we learned today is why you should start with why, what's important about money to you, how can you clearly define what you want, why you don't need a budget, what can you do if you can't achieve the life you want, how can you make your life realistic, your plan realistic, how can you get help with your plan, why should you learn to have a higher risk tolerance, what's the key to implementing your plan, and is it worth the effort? All right, well, thanks for listening. My name again is Ed Rempel. My blog is Unconventional Wisdom. It's the #1 blog in Canada for a full-service financial planner. It's edrempel.com. You can also get it to unconventionalwisdom.ca, but make sure you go to .ca. If you want to talk with us and potentially interested in being a client, there's no pressure to do that at all. We just talk to you about what it is you're looking for and see if we're a fit. Just type in there, just Google edrempel.com/talk and the form will come up. Also, it'd be very helpful if you help spread the word about this. We have an unconventional wisdom about what really works, completely different from what's out there. So if you subscribe to my blog and share it, it can help get the word out. So you can subscribe to the blog, podcast, and YouTube. All that means is you get an email every week with our new articles and videos and podcasts when they come out. Our podcast is new. It's only been out for about 6 weeks, but there was already quite a few on there. It's coming, and there's quite a few coming out. Just edrempel.com/listen will get you there. And the YouTube video is edrempel.com/watch. So thanks a lot for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.